State government is responsible for so many things. How funds will be invested on which public services is spelled out in our state budget. If the state budget is like a map, guiding how the state will fulfill these responsibilities, the state revenue forecast is the fuel gauge, providing state decision makers with vital information on the resources to achieve progress. North Carolina's Constitution requires that the state balance its budget every year. It's crucial that the governor and the General Assembly have an idea of how much revenue the state should expect to collect before planning how to invest that revenue. That's why state budgets in North Carolina begin with the Consensus Revenue Forecast. Together, the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management and the General Assembly's Fiscal Research Division develop the revenue forecast. Economists in these agencies work with other agencies, like the Department of Revenue, Department of Transportation, and the North Carolina Education Lottery to gather data about state revenues. Revenue forecasts estimate future revenue based on historical relationships between economic activity and state revenue. They consider future trends and outlooks for the state and national economies. Then OSBM and the Fiscal Research Division estimate the state's expected general fund, highway fund, and highway trust fund revenues. The forecast runs through the end of the current biennium or the upcoming biennium. When the Consensus Revenue Forecast anticipates more revenues than necessary to continue funding state services at prior year levels, the governor and the General Assembly may propose to expand services, reduce taxes, and/or save surplus revenues. When the Consensus Forecast anticipates insufficient revenues to maintain current levels of state services, the governor and General Assembly must propose a balanced budget by choosing between reducing spending, raising taxes, or creating new state revenue sources, relying on savings, or some combination of those strategies. Because the Consensus Revenue Forecast is an important early step in state budget development, the forecast is usually issued twice prior to the development of the budget for the full biennium, and once before the budget adjustments for the second year of the biennium. Revenue forecasting remains important even after the state budget is passed into law by an Appropriations Act. OSBM economists continue to monitor revenue collections for signs of potential shortfall. If OSBM anticipates revenue collections will fall short of what is necessary to pay for budgeted expenditures, the governor has the authority to curtail expenditures to ensure the state maintains a balanced budget. It's an important part of our constitutional requirement to maintain a balanced budget. Revenue forecasts are an important part of creating and managing our state's budget. It determines the resources the state will have to invest in the services North Carolinians rely on while meeting the constitutional requirement to balance expenditures and revenues.